I want to talk to you about my friend Charlie Crawford. He's a 10-time NFR qualifier.
Charlie Crawford, time to just shake it out and win. Got it on him fast, set
there
up.
We are.
Here's a day
nice
money
run.
lead. You betcha 3-8.
That's an absolute perfect run. Timing was perfect from the time the first swing is up. He's got the control. Charlie made it happen by being timed up with his horse with the steer, and being able to not just rope, but to pick that steer's head up without changing the momentum for the heeler at all.
We know his beautiful wife, Jackie, all three of their beautiful children, the founder of the Liberty and Loyalty Foundation, which this year will exceed $1 million raised for military and first responders. I've said it 1,000 times. Charlie, it's time to rope, nod and ride, whip and spur. I want to welcome you to the Charlie Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
All right. Hello, everybody. I've got my good friend Clay Logan on the podcast today. Clay is a world-renowned horseman. He's a hell of a cowboy. A lot of his story started in Arizona being a cowboy. And what I mean by a cowboy is I can't wait to go down some of these stories that we're going to talk about. He's got some great ropings that he's got producing that he's been doing a great job the last few years. He's got 2 a year. We'll talk about that and some of the incentives that he's got going on maybe in the next couple of years as well. And I'm just really excited, Clay, to have you on. You're so well respected in the industry. All the people that I talk about, genuinely great guy, and man, it's an honor to have you on the podcast. So thanks for coming on.
Well, real happy to be here. I appreciate you letting me come spend some time with you.
So I want to talk a little bit about some of the horses that you've had at the NFR and the AQHA, but just going over some of your stats, you've had over 10 AQHA World and Reserve Championships, 8 APHA World Championships, 9 APHA Reserve World Championships, an AQHA lifetime member. You're an AQHA professional horseman. You've trained several AQHA World Champions and Reserve World Champion horses. Also trained several NFR heading and heeling horses. Your stats are phenomenal, and one of the things that I really like to go over, because I would say I probably have a real strong team roping following, obviously, but just to kind of catch everyone up, I love going down some of the history a little bit of the NFR horses that you've had on the head side and the heel side, and I'm pretty intimate with the one that I remember, Dugout, the one that Brady Minor had, because he got that horse at a real young age. He was young and the horse was young, and that horse lasted a really long time. I'm very familiar with that one.
Actually, that was a CDO Lena out of like a Doc Quixote mare that I got from Farron Hightower, and I rode, kind of partnered with Farron on the horse, and I sold the horse to BJ Campbell at the U.S. Finals. And then BJ took him home and he rode him some, and then he sold him to Brady. And the horse, I don't think the horse was maybe 5 years old when Brady got him. I sold him to BJ when he was a 4-year-old, I'm pretty sure.
Because I remember back then, because I grew up there in that area, so I knew BJ and Brady very well. And I remember shoeing that horse for BJ out in the middle of pasture.
Little small feet.
Tiny feet.
And lasted.
Triple lot.
Big, heavy bone, triple lot foot.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It was amazing he lasted as long as he did.
10, how many years? 10, 12? That was a long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
Long time. He was a great horse at Pendleton. Like, I think even when he was kind of lost a little bit of his...
In his later years, he didn't stop quite as hard up there.
He was still really good at Pendleton.
Yeah. I remember a lot of guys got to ride him up there. So,
What was some other head horses and heel horses that were NFR calibers?
I got to ride... So Randon Adams called me, and he told me, he said, hey, I got a horse I'd like for you to take and ride a little bit for us. He said, I'm going to be gone from the ranch. And that's when they had their sale and all their stuff going on, and he had them guys working at Dublin. And they had transmission there. And that horse actually, to begin with, I think Jordan Allen and Tyler Merrill were kind of riding him at the ranch there at that point in time. And Randall says, hey, I'd like for you to just take this horse for a while if you don't mind, and blah, blah, blah. So I took him, and I started taking him to horse shows and helping on. Because, the good part about that deal at that point in time is that's how I got to train quite a few of these rodeo horses. I'd go, there'd be a score, but it wasn't a terrible long score. The cattle weren't super strong, so you got to be able to put some quality runs on them horses without putting too much pressure on them. So that horse was 4 years old when he sent him, and he was great. I mean, from day one, that horse is always back in the box and scored. Unbelievable. And he had so much run and he's a big horse. Had so much run, flat, got a hold of steers good, faced. He just was a great horse and still is a great horse. So I was helping on him up there in Oklahoma City, and there was a couple of people there. Of course, they'd see me more, and that horse everybody kind of knew he was and was calling Randon trying to buy him. And Brandon's like, "You're not putting too much on him." I'm like, "No, I said he's good. I mean, I'm not going to blow him up. I'm staying hooked there." And he said, "Okay." And so I'd kept him and got to summertime, and I was entered the rodeo at Pecos with Blake Elms. So Blake and I'd drive to Pecos, or he says, "Hey, let's enter Pecos." I said, "I ain't really got nothing to ride." And he goes, "Well, what about that horse right there?" He goes, "Well, the cattle are going to be dead fresh. They'll be walking fresh." So I said, "Well, I'll take him up there." So we run our first year. We're like 7-6, placed in the first round, and we were one of the last teams to go. And I think we won that third round, fourth round, something like that. Come back. We're one of the first teams to come back, and we're like 7-3 on the next one. And I'm like, somebody's like, "Man, you guys don't win a lot of money." I'm like, "No, I don't win that much here." And they're like, "No, it was, Anyways, he was perfect. I think we won third or fourth rodeo or whatever. But anyways, Brandon called me the next week. He was like, "I think that horse is ready to go." So that was my last time I got to ride Transmission. But at least I could put his first PRCA earrings on him. So it was pretty cool.
So for everyone to understand, Transmission, did Jay make the finals on him?
Jay did too.
At a pretty young age.
Yes, Jay made the finals on him also.
And then that horse had kind of stayed through the rankings of he stayed in the PRCA for a little bit.
Yep, and then stayed up to PRCA, and then Clint ended up getting
And then Clint got him maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I believe.
And that horse is still making a name for himself, and he's in his 20s.
Right, in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Still scores.
Yeah.
Great horse.
Yeah, he might have lost maybe a little bit of his step speed-wise, which has almost made him a great horse indoors.
Right.
He looks phenomenal at the NFR. He looks
Clint's
great.
got some spots he rides in. It looks like he's well-mounted, and that horse doesn't have any
Reserve that horse for where his strengths are.
He doesn't have any cheat in him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that horse. And I remember when Jay rode him, I was a fan back then as well.
Right.
What are some of the other horses that you've had?
I had another horse that Turtle Powell wrote the NFR. He was by Rooster's Wrangler. Cole Davison's dad had trained him in the cutting, and a friend of ours, Bill Wood, bought him in Arizona and sent him to us, and we got to open on him, and he was tough. It took a little while to get him.
Was that the little bay horse didn't he call him Rooster?
Called him Wrangler.
Wrangler.
Yeah. And but he was pretty cowy, and it took quite a little while to get him, but we were happy that Turtle made the finals on him 1 year or two, and he had a lot of run, big motor, a lot of run. There's some times he maybe didn't just quite do everything he needed to do, but he was good enough. He could get enough athlete. He could get himself out of trouble if he got himself in a little bit of trouble.
I remember that horse. That was a good one.
And then Nacho was a bay horse we had. He was by Lizzie's Got a Player. Pete Fanning owned him, which we lived right there at our place. Pete did. And I trained Nacho for him. We had him from a 2-year-old till we sold him to, as we had him 2-year-old, and I hauled him, same deal. Took him to horse shows, helped on him for quite a little while. And the horse, till the horse was probably 8, I wouldn't say. And we had him from a 2-year-old on. And he was a go-to horse. I could haul him anywhere. World Series, I could haul him to an open. I could haul him to help on anywhere. He was great. So Nick Sartain took him, and Nick rode him there 1 year, made the NFR on him. Did him and Rich, I think he was riding with Rich that year. Did real good on him at the NFR that year. And
the buckskin?
No, he was bay.
The bay.
He was right after right before or after the buckskin.
Okay.
And anyways, then Nacho ended up going to JB James after that. And then he got lame, and they had to put him down. But he was a great horse.
Yeah,
scored good, and that was another nice horse we had.
Those are fun. It seems like when you're able to make them and see what they can do, and then you're able to kind of be a fan from the.
Yeah, it's great to watch
stands.
somebody else ride something that you rode. I mean, it's
like having a horse in the race.
It's like you got somebody to root for sure. Yeah. You're a team player for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then another horse we have, which person probably wouldn't, not many people's going to know this horse because he wasn't around a lot rodeoing, is a horse called Magnum. He was by Cat Itchy. We had him, we bought him I think I bought this horse as a 3-year-old from Kathy Dawn, trains cutting horses, Kathy Dawn, Hall of Fame cutter. And Kathy called me about this horse. So we ended up buying him. We rode him for a minute for her, and then we bought him and we trained him. And actually, like the timed event challenge at Fort Worth 1 year, Sean Darnell won the time deal on the Heelan of that horse at Fort Worth. And anyways, we had it on him, and I had sold him, and he reappeared. I sold him to a friend of mine in Florida, Peter Adrian. And Nelson Linares was kind of around the horse the whole time and hauled him to some of the rodeos down there. And then as time passed, he came back, and Manny ended up buying the horse. And Dustin was having one of the years they went to NFR and didn't get a very good start, and then got to about the 6th, 7th round. And you'll see if you watch the highlights on some of their NFR stuff, he's on a sorrel streak face horse. and they make this really great run. And after they make the run, they finally broke the ice, it looked like. And you've seen him afterwards, and he's like, how that was just easy. But Magnum's been back with him a couple of different times. I don't think he went last year, but he was there a couple different times. And that horse he's got some age on him too. So it's fun to watch those kind of horses.
Yeah, so fun too is when you watch guys that struggle showing off their ability, and then when they get on something that lets them win and that lets them show their ability.
Yeah, and that horse, like I said, he's about like a transmission at that point in time in his life. He'd kind of lost a step, but he still scored good, and he was good for that setup for him. So.
One of the things that I remembered as I was kind of trying to season my horses throughout my rodeo career was the ones that still had their legs under them, the ones that are still kind of young. I wasn't really wanting to throw them in the fire real early. And the fact of, like, I didn't want to throw them in like the NFR setups. I didn't want to throw them in the short stuff because if they had the run, I wanted to keep it.
Right.
And also, I didn't really want to get them to where they started learning how to drop and things like that, because it seems like once they learn it, then it's really hard to take that out.
Once you lose
of them.
that shoulder right there, you're going to be in trouble.
So I took a lot of mine, like you talked about. I took a lot of mine that I was seasoning that had that speed. I'd start them off at Pecos. They went to Guyman quite a bit. The longer scores, the cowboy kind of setups. Right. They all went to Prescott. Maybe Salinas, obviously, if they had the run, as long as I felt like their minds would stay input, stay collected. Your Cheyennes, even a little bit of Dodge Cities and stuff like that, and maybe some of the three headers. But I tried keeping them away from the short setups. And honestly, it felt like my more seasoned horses that were starting to lose a little bit of their legs, which is very natural in athletes and horses as well. As the older they get, the first thing it seems like they lose is their legs. Their mental capability is actually stronger than ever. But, when they start losing their legs, it actually felt easier to ride those in those shorter setups in the buildings.
Right.
And so it seemed like that was a great way to where you saved them and utilized what their strengths were.
Right. Right. And then we had a bay mare called Uno Cheetah that we had owned that we bought from Tom Lyons. And my wife had worked for Tom Lyons years ago, and it was by Smart Luno. And so we owned her at that point in time, and Britt Buckus was I think that's about the time El Paso was one of the last road going towards the end of the year, wasn't it?
It's been on both sides of it.
Okay. Yeah. But anyways, it was kind of towards the end, and Britt was kind
of
like maybe kind of not going to, close to not making her, needed a horse, whatever. So I had Replay in that mare, and they were both 5 years old at that time, I believe, 5 or 6. And so Britt come by and rode him, and so he had rode Replay in they had another futurity deal going on years before that, and he'd rode him before. So he took him to El Paso. Well, Replay's funny horse. A tarp, a piece of paper blowing towards him. Mm-hmm. Like he didn't want the gentlest horse could be, but that kind of stuff, like he was. So Britt says, I got there, and he said, I got the big tarp. And he said, I didn't know I got to get him in the arena. And he comes back and he won the rodeo. I can't remember won the rodeo, but he won enough to get him to the finals and all that stuff. So when the finals come around, he was going to take one of the two, and he chose to take the mare instead of Replay that year, which great one way or the other for us. But, we would have liked to have seen Replay make the finals one year. So.
Yeah. Now, what about some of the AQHA world champs? I know you've had quite a few championships, but what are some of the ones that stand out to you? I'd like to kind of save the MJ Razor Wire for toward the end of some of the stories, but what were some of the other?
Well, actually, MJ Razor Wire's dad, his stallion was named WR Wired Wichita, and that was my first big win in the AQHA. I won reserve at the World Show on them in 2002 in the Heelan, and that was a sire to MJ Razor Wire. But anyways, I think my first one was Replay. And I had the same year as Replay, there was a really, really nice paint gilding we showed for a friend of ours in Arizona, Chris Lieb. I think he was by Delta Flyer. I can't remember for sure, but I think so. Anyways, a big stopper. We didn't really train the horse. A friend of mine, Ben Balo, was the trainer, and they showed him in the rein and in the cow horse and that stuff. And he was a great horse. They sent him down, and I got to win the world on him. I think I won 2 or 3 times on him. And that's the same year that I won my first one on Replay. So that year I was well mounted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, what characteristics do you feel like that horse had that stood out so much that was the world champion horse? I think there's always kind of something that
which
stands
Replay
out.
or the paint? Which one do you mean?
Either one.
Well, I mean, those horses just they didn't look for a way out. They looked for a way in. They look to help you. Those kind of really great horses to me, they're not looking for a way out. I mean, and if things start going, I mean, like if something doesn't go good, they kind of know they made a mistake and they're a little upset about it, and you just kind of push it aside and let them do their job, and get confidence that they know that they can, because everybody's going to make a mistake, as we know, and maybe not read the cow. And I think lots of times a little bit of like letting it slide instead of really getting after one, probably build some confidence in them better than otherwise. And trust me, I've done both, and sometimes is right and sometimes is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that balance is like, all right, better,
right,
pay attention, or it's like, I get it, I messed up too. Yeah, that's the big part I think of the horsemanship, is knowing that timing of, when, because it seems like a lot of guys. The best thing that I ever heard in my whole life that really changed the way I started thinking about becoming a better horseman was when Jackie told me about that saying of Ian Francis, of where knowledge ends is where anger begins, and understanding when your emotions are leading your corrections, or if your sensibility more or less is leading your corrections on, is this a battle that was worth attending right here because he just made a mistake? Or it's like, okay, come on now, better. Where it's like the kid that didn't make his bed, and better to make your bed. So that was a very fine line. It was really kind of a pivotal point for me, really, because then I went down all the times that I lost my temper, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I didn't know what else to do.
My dad would say, personally, a guy that whips a horse over the head, the only reason they do it because they don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you think about it at times, people
Absolutely
are frustrated, and that's pretty well the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
So on to the next, the other horses, like, I think in 2012, I won the senior heeling on replay, and I won the junior heeling on a horse called Stylish Rocky. And, he was a great horse. His career wasn't as long. I ended up going to Cody Hintz at the end, but he kind of had a bad stifle that didn't last as long as we'd like for him to for Cody. Mm-hmm. But he was a great horse. He belonged to a friend of ours, Dawn Severo. She was very nice to let me ride that horse as long as she did. He was a really, really nice horse.
I talked to Cade Rice this morning, and I was talking to him about, your career and some of the things and accomplishments that you've had. And he's like, man, you got to talk about. And I think in 2013, he said, you'd had battled some health issues.
Yeah. I had a heart attack Christmas Day.
Yep. That's what he said.
2013.
Mm-hmm. And he said that, like, everyone needs to know, like, when we talk about Clay, is like what he had been through, how he perseveres, and kind of the man that he is. And he said it was a heck of a year at the end of that year. Yeah. So I'll let you.
Well, talk about that. I can't remember. I think I won reserve at the World Show the next year on replay. I can't remember, but it was a battle back. And I think I won reserve, but we had a bunch of horses back in the finals. I got my health back.
And that was a big heart attack, you said, right? That one took a little while to get over.
Well, they brought me back 6 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? 4
at the hospital to Granbury and twice on the helicopter.
And where did it happen? Was it at home?
At home, yeah.
At home?
Just woke up with chest pains and
I would say if I'm going to have a heart attack, it is probably going to be here at my house as well.
Yeah, and
the stress level sometimes at home is almost more than anywhere else.
I was, of course, in chest pains, and my wife's like, "Well, you want to go to the hospital?" And I said, "No."
Where did it start?
It was just like it was like you had terrible indigestion, somebody just stomping on your chest.
Couldn't breathe.
I mean, just like bent over pain. And finally, she says, "Either shut up or let's go to the hospital." I said, "Well, let's go to the hospital." And then we started driving to the hospital, and we got to it was cold as hell. And of course, my wife's going to stop at every red light, and it's 3:00 in the morning, Christmas morning. And I'm like, "Hey, just go through the light," And we get to the last I remember is getting to I remember getting to the lake, crossing the bridge, and that's all I don't remember anymore. Hospital was not too far. And apparently we walked in, and I told them she dropped me off at the door, parked the car. I walked in and I tell them I'm having a heart attack, and they're like, "Well, we'll get somebody in here." And about that time, I said, "No, I don't think you understand. I need some help right now." And then I just fell over. And about the time she walked in, and she helped them get me in a chair, and they told her she better go to see the priest. So it was quite a deal.
Yeah.
So,
and how old were you then?
45.
46. Yeah, dodged that one. Yeah.
No kidding. 45 and didn't even know that I didn't realize looking back, I can see I was fatigued and this and that, but, wanted to sleep more than I probably needed to and this and that, whatever. As of luckily got through the heart attack with very minimal damage to my heart, thanks to a great heart doctor. Somehow they kept me in an induced coma for about, I remember coming home, I don't remember anything until New Year's Day. And it was pretty overwhelming.
A week or two?
A week, yeah, about a week. And then, of course, I guess in the hospital they told me that I was like telling them, "Oh, we got a horse show this week. We got
things to do."
I don't remember enough.
Yeah.
I was telling this, but I don't remember anything. I said, "Hey, Nick's at the house waiting to ride them horses." Blah blah blah. Nick's Artane. So, but as it turned out, Caden then took up his life for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how you can still keep your schedule even though that you're going through some life-changing ordeals.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because I tell you what, when you stay in that realm, when your mind is always moving, it doesn't matter. Like, look, I don't have time for a heart attack. I got to get things going.
Well, that's like I'm actually going to take a hunting trip next week, and I never this time of year I haven't in all the 20-some years I've been in here. But I'm going to take a week and go hunting. So.
Yeah, good. And so that year, Cade was like, that was one of the coolest stories you said where you battled back on MJ Razor Wire that year, correct?
Yeah. No. That was after my hand surgery.
Okay.
So that year I come back, I believe I won reserve on replay in the senior healing, and which was great. We all did good. And we had a cool video. I wish I could. I thought about this. So we had a horse at the house named Edgar Allan Pooh was his name, and he was a great horse. He was by Pepto Boone's Mall out of a really good mare, and then. So after we kind of got well from after my heart attack, Cade and I are out there roping, and we got Pooh and replay. And so we took both the bridles off. I'm talking no nothing around their neck, not like a tack collar, like nothing. We took her tail of our rope back, both horses in the box, and we made a run on them horses. Cade heading and me heeling, neither horse with anything on.
I think I did see that.
And it was the coolest thing those two horses were pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think I did see that on social media.
Yeah,
because you'll see a lot of times the heeling.
Yeah,
you don't see very many.
Yeah,
times
the head. I told Cade, I said, "See, you've been getting in his way. Look how good he faced right there."
That's awesome. But yeah, he said that defined a lot of your character and your career with just the fact that there was no stopping.
Well, we got through that, and it was tough enough. And then, I'll track forward, and then so I think I can't remember if the next year I won I tied up there in the heeling on a horse called Old Man. It was a dual ray. I tied with Steve Orth, and we had a rope off. Luckily, I beat Steve. I think Steve roped a leg, and I actually beat him in the rope off, which I was dang sure happy to for sure. It was a big moment for me after that stuff happened. Some time passed. I can't remember what year it was now, but so when I was 6. I was a senior in high school, and I broke my hand, and I broke my navicular bone in my hand. Well, I didn't take care of it. I didn't think, cut the cast off, blah, 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 gonna go do what you want to go do. And through the years, I lost a little mobility in my hand and didn't think much about it, and it'd get sore. So I had been going to this doctor, and I was getting it injected, and I said, "What are we going to do with it?" And he said, "Well, there'll be a time that you're going to come in my office and say, we're going to fix this hand." So we come back from I think finale in Vegas, and my neighbors were gone, so I went over there to feed their horses, and they had big, tall feeders, and I had got a big bunch. It was snowing, big flick of hay, threw it at that feeder, and I'm like, "Oh!" And my hand was done. It was done.
Something simple set it off.
That was the end of it. So they went in there, and as it turned out, that bone that I broke died, and then they had to take it out, and they had to fuse my whole wrist. So I've got 10% movement in my wrist, and then I'd lost quite a bit of strength in my hand. So I have a harder time. I have to double glove to try to get my rope stopped now because my hand doesn't close far enough to have a real good grip on my rope like I did before.
Is there rehab, or is that just
that doctor just told me that's just how it's going to be, and he's lucky.
Stuff like
he
that
told me I was lucky to have any mobility, which I have very little, but I survived it, and I kind of had to revamp some of my stuff that I do, which all been good, but. Mm-hmm. What Cade was talking about that year when I went to the World Show when I won on MJ Razor Wire was I was down, down. My hand was toast, and I finally made it back, and I actually won the heeling. We made the finals. For some reason, they took a bunch of our stuff back, and that horse was yet to go in the finals, and they took my heel rope. I did not have my heel rope there. And I had to have George McClain would make me these real soft rope so I could swing them because my hand wasn't very good.
So you could hold on to
So I could hold, yeah.
Because anything too stiff would almost get away,
too
right?
stiff, I couldn't swing it, couldn't get in front of it. So George got me some ropes that were soft enough, and they took my ropes back. And I'm up in two. I'm like, what the hell? My ropes are gone. Of course, I had a little meltdown right there. And Zane Bruce rode by, and he goes, "Will this work?" And it was a heat 30-foot head rope. I said, that'll be great. It was like a soft head rope, and I come around and healed the steer and won the healing.
That's awesome.
It was a pretty big deal. What
is the ropes that you use with your hand being in that setup on the head side and the heel side?
To be honest with you, I use the spiders a lot, and I know that they're a little harder to get stopped at times. But
because what he means by that is like when you're dallying, they'll slide on that horn a little bit.
With the head, and I don't have any problem at all. In the heeling, it doesn't really matter what rope I'm going to use. They're gonna slide a little bit on me. But if I do rough them up a little, like years ago, I put some fuzz on them ropes to where they'll grab a little bit, and then the double glove helps. And that's also why I've been tying off at the fraternities. And I've seen somebody even ask a question like, what's the pros and cons of tying off at the fraternities? Well, the pros for me, I'm 56 years old for one thing, so I'm pretty well like I'm one of the old men in this deal. Myself, Brad Lund, JD, we're the old guys in this whole deal right at the moment. And tied off, my catching percentage is pretty high. I'm not having to hurry to get back and know I got to get myself set up to get a big jerk and everything. So my catching percentage is high. The downfall of it is those horses get all the jerk.
Okay.
You can't pop 6 inches of rope to them to get their feet underneath them. So they're getting all the jerk when it comes through there. And so, especially if you rope a leg, a one-legged jerk is not going to look good. Them horses get slapped in the face with the rope. And the pros of dallying is like when you rope and you dally, and if that steer hits you and you feel that horse kind of going to step, you can slide about 6 inches of rope, and you can set his feet right back underneath him and hold him. And for me, the pros and cons is that. And I kind of look at it at this point. At the fraternities, for sure, I'm going to tie off at the World Show, kind of up in the air. It just kind of depends on depends on how my hand feels that day, to be honest with you.
Makes sense.
Yeah. If I feel like my hand's pretty strong that day, I'll probably dally.
So you head and heel with the spiders?
With the spiders, yep. Yep, and I've tried some other stuff in there, but that's what I've got along the best with.
It's funny how sometimes my roping will go through kind of phases. And what I mean by that is like when I was rodeoing, sometimes I get to swinging too dang fast. And sometimes them heats would get ahead of me just a little bit, and I might lose my feel because they were so fast I almost lose my feel. And I love the power lines and the GT4s because they're just anytime you like need to get your feel back, they're just so true. They had weight, so they had good feel. They didn't have as much body, but they had enough. But I always loved the game time Tritons. They were right in the middle, like for me heading.
Right.
But there's like now that I've just been riding a fraternity horse, and then I've been kind of getting my good horse Cotton ready for a couple weeks ago at the Spicer Grip. When I got off my fraternity horse, he's a little bit longer strided, and I kept having to get like some heats and some spiders because he's a little longer strided, and I was trying to get him kind of sped up. And it's amazing what that'll do to help speed things up, especially I think when you're showing. Because training enough, it kind of can slow your swing down sometimes too much, can't it?
Yeah, well, and especially like so when I really kind of had to learn how to rope again, to be honest with you, I would almost have to palm my rope until I learned how to rope. And so if a steer stepped right, my hand couldn't move that way. So I would have to learn to turn my whole body to catch a steer going to the right, where before I could just change angle my rope and catch him to the right. So, I mean, it's been good. I mean, I guess the good thing is it makes me have to be at my horse position pretty well every time, to set things up. So,
your left hand has to overcompensate a little bit.
Yes, it does.
Have you found that like your lighter ropes, like the spiders and the heats, have you found that sometimes it's easier on your shoulder roping all day because they're easier to swing?
For me, it is, and that's actually the two ropes that I do use. The other one I would use is a heat. And I've tried the Tritons, but the heat are the other ones that I would use. And the same deal, they're a little lighter, and the older you get,
it's easier to swing.
Softer the rope gets too. And you've got so many runs in you in a day, and I used to have, I couldn't tell you how many I could run in a day. Now, I run 60 and I'm wore out.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk about a little bit of the history of kind of how you cut your teeth a little bit through the AQHA. So when you came up through the ranks, I would say, and let me know if you agree or disagree, but J.D. Yates, Robbie Schroeder, Bobby Lewis. Those were kind of the godfathers, wasn't they, of when AQHA kind of started in the team roping.
Yeah. Well, when I first
you came in under them, correct? Like
right.
They were established, right?
Yes, they were
the names.
They were, exactly the people you had to beat. If you had to beat them, I always, through the years, I didn't think, and nothing against it, and I'm not, no name calling, nothing against anything like that, but like I think the judging for the AQHA at that point in time, there wasn't very many roping judges. Just people that just roped, the people had a specialty card to judge every event going on there. Well, I think, JD and Bobby and Robbie were a lot more involved with the seminars and a lot more involved with the being on the boards and all that kind of stuff. So all the people knew them pretty well. And so if they knew them well, you might make an equivalent run that they did. They're probably going to lean towards them just because if they don't know a lot about the roping, they know that's Robbie Schroeder, and they know that if he did it, it's probably right. Or if that's JD Yates, or if that's Bobby and whatever their pick is. So it was tough going up through there. I can think of a day I had a really nice yellow gilly, and his name was Pitching. He was by Linus Gilbar out of a mare that Waylon Long used to own called Sun's Pitchfork. I think Waylon won about $300,000 on the mare. He was a little yellow horse, big stopper, great little horse. And I come around the horse show one day, and I was trying to getting towards the end of the year, I was trying to get qualified for the World Show, and man, these guys, I'd make good runs and not win nothing. Now I get my name called, and I'm like, man, these customers have been great sticking with me. Robert Gifford, thank you very much. Anyways, so I make this great run. Don't win nothing. I'm like, what the hell? And this has been going on. I had two nice horses. I had Higgins Hickory. No, what's his name? Higgins Hickory. Had Higgins Hickory, and I had Pitching. They were both great. Anyways, had a hard time winning on them. So Jay Wadden goes, let me ride that damn horse tomorrow. So Jay comes out there, he comes around there, he catches this deer, makes a decent run, rides out, first place under every judge, looks at me and goes, that's how, that's kind of how it was for a while. And it was, would it
be almost a little bit on the lines of not what you know sometimes, but who you know?
Yes, that's how it was. And I think it's better now than it was. But yeah, that's how it was. And I knew through the whole years going up through there, I always told myself that I'm going to have to outwork them to beat them. I mean, when I say outwork them, I mean, I'm going to have my horse is going to have to be 2 points better than their horse is for me to win. That's just, in my mind, that's what I always told myself is like, you're going to have to outwork them, and you're going to have to like be 2 points better than them to win. That's the only way you're going to win. You have to do something so spectacular to beat those guys. And, I guess I was just not too dumb to quit. I mean, I just sucked it up. There was some years I came home from the World Show, and when I unloaded them, I saddled them up and went right back to work. I'm like, I got 365 days to get back, go up there, and do better than I did this time.
Yeah, that was a tough culture back then. A lot of that stuff was kind of the intimidation era a little bit too, and because I remember when I first got my permit and stuff, not a lot of those guys really give you much intel. It's almost like they had the edge. This was team roping,
right.
Rodeo and stuff like that. And I would say the culture changed a little bit. Tyler Magnus, he was one of the guys that kind of like, he'd throw me a bone here and there quite a bit and take you in and come rope, do whatever. And then it seemed like once you kind of almost proved to those guys, it was almost like that era of like, look, you're all a bunch of little piss heads until you can get up here with us.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind that in one perspective because it was kind of, that era was tough men. If you got to kind of prove yourself a little bit. And it seemed like once I kind of started showing them that I was able to work, I was able to I had some good horses and I was able to start winning. It kind of felt like when I got to a spot where I could feel the respect amongst that era, was that kind of a little bit the same too?
Yeah, it was the same way. And
cutting your teeth through it.
I spent some time at Schroeder's. I went to Schroeder's and roped. I mean, I have to say I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I was self-taught. I never worked for a trainer. I mean, let me back up. I never worked for a rope horse trainer. I was fortunate enough to work for Lindy Birch, Chris Benedict, Kobe Wood, the best. Kobe was the what's the word I'm looking for? Kobe, the more you could do, the more he would let you do. So for him, when I worked for Kobe, even it was a different event, I was still learning a lot about horses and what to do and maybe what not to do. But Kobe was like a guy that would let you be hands-on, and he would let you ride the best horse he had there. And not everybody would do that. Kobe would say, here, I remember one day I got to ride Red, White, and Boone you ever heard of Red White Boots? He won like 700,000 cutting. This horse was unbelievable. I mean, but Kobe's like, the only way you're going to learn this is to get on a horse that is that good, so you know what you're looking to feel for. And no matter if I was starting 2-year-olds in or whatever, and then because I had some 2-year-olds I sold for a lot of money in the cutting, until I went in the direction of the roping. But I mean, I had to grind my way up through that. I mean, off the wall of the roping of JD and that. So
well, I think it's really cool for people to understand too. Is like you don't know sometimes what a good horse is until you got on a good horse,
right?
And when you learn how to get a feel at
right.
those other elements, that's where the broke suckers are.
Yep.
That's where them suckers use their feet and stuff. And so to be able to have that knowledge and be able to take that knowledge into the rope industry.
Yep. And you know, JD came and helped me one time. They were going to Houston. They were going to some rodeos down there, him and Jay, and you know, I was close to beating him. I was close. You know, I was just about over the hump and this and that, whatever. And JD came by and he there's a couple things that he helped me with that were the defining things of making me be a lot more successful.
And that's kind of what, like say, once you cut your teeth and you have the respect, and then because that's what I've noticed about when I've gone to the fraternities, like no one's hoarding anything from me. And like I said, I'm not a threat, you know, and so it's pretty easy to talk to me because I just enjoy it. I really love the learning part of it. It's a, you know, the horsemanship's like the Bible. It's a book that never ends. You know, you're always learning something different along the way. And it's such a cool culture, but it seemed like wasn't always that way at the start, but then it kind of started to be that way.
I tell you who else I went and stayed with a lot was Gary Wells. Gary Wells is a great roper, not just a calf roper. He did not just tie down horses. I think Gary Wells can train a horse, a great head horse, a great heel horse. Gary Wells is outstanding. Like, and I learned a lot from Gary. He was outstanding. He let me ride quite a few horses he had, and which I was happy to just be able to go show and get more experience. And Gary was great. Then Jay Wadhams, I'm going to go with Jay Wadhams. Jay Wadhams is the best catch rider there ever was. Jay Wadhams didn't want to be a trainer. He just wanted to make the money, and he did it. And I'll give him 100% credit for that.
Kind of the hired gun.
You bet. He could get it done.
What do you call it, catch rider?
Catch rider. That's what, yeah, he was a great catch rider.
Now would Brock Hansen kind of own that title right now?
Brock Hansen is not a catch rider. Brock Hansen's unbelievable. Brock can run how many steers, and I mean, he actually came to the house this morning and rode a stud that I had that we're trying to get ready for Autobuckle. We got a couple of things going, and he was going to maybe ride him if somebody didn't show up. But anyways, make a long story short, Brock showed up this morning, no different. Just comes around there, doesn't miss.
Both ends.
When he heads a steer, you can hear the rope from the other end of the arena slap on their horns. I mean, it's intimidating if you're heeling for him because you're like, holy crap. And then all of a sudden you're expecting this big thing to happen, and he just sets him right up for you. Yeah. Brock's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool to see what he's done in that. And that as somebody like Tate Kirkenslager said, you know, somebody who's perfected that and worked at it since they were 8 years old, to be able to see like where he's mastered that to where there's an industry for him to go, where he can use those skills still and have a business doing it.
Yeah. And speaking of Tate, I mean, everybody needs to remember, I might be 56 years old, but I still want to get better. And don't think I don't go to Tate's or won't call Tate and ask him, say, hey, what do I need to do? I mean, things have evolved and changed some, and there's some stuff I need to change. And trust me, I don't want to lose. And so if you don't think you can learn something from somebody, I don't care how old you are, you better just keep, you're going to lose if you don't try to get better.
I totally agree.
There's a way to get better.
And that's what's been so great about these fraternities, in my opinion, is the evolution of it.
Yeah.
Where, you know, the judging system is creating such an avenue for a lot of these horses to go to, because, you know, if they're great, they're going upper level.
Right.
If they're good, there's a 13 roping down to the 8 that is just kind of, if they know their job and they're willing, you know, they're all going to fit. There's such an avenue for them to go now.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I've been seeing where people are asking constant questions every week when I have these Facebook posts, you know, of what they can do when they get in the industry, because I think it's drawing now to where there's people that there's a lot of places for these horses to go. And now it's you know, I think also for the non-pros, for the intermediates to the pros, there's a way now where it feels like these fraternities are giving people a level where they can kind of graduate to the top if that's the direction they want to go.
There's a lot of directions to go with these horses. They're not done when that deal's over. You know, there's people that want to have a great horse, and and if they can get through this whole fraternity thing through their 6-year-old year, and they're pretty solid because it's not an easy setup.
I agree.
You know.
Now, with where the AQHA was then, has it progressed? Has it evolved? Has it kind of stayed the same? And then
I think the AQHA was really, really big there. You know, some of the early years when I started winning, and it kind of fell off some. And I think they changed some stuff, and they've tried to get some different kind of. I think their judging's a little better than it was. They got some more now. You'll go to some places that have some specialty judges that people that are current in what's going on. They've built their numbers back up. They actually their payoff is a lot better. It's this year I looked at it and it was going to be 28,000 to win the senior heeling. You know, it's went way up from what it was by maybe 3 times. And a lot of that to do was Phil Tierney and JD did a lot of pushing to do some stuff in there. And I think they did a very good job of like getting a hold of it before it sunk.
Do you think there were some things that kind of gave it some urgency to change?
The money is one thing, and the money and the judging, I think, is 2 of the biggest things. Is if they figured out if they're not going to be if there's no money involved in this, people aren't going to come this direction anymore, you know. And the second thing is even for the fraternity stuff. I personally think a lot of these guys going to the AQHA shows still. Like I said before with my help horses, the setup's not as hard, the score's not that long. Usually the cattle aren't super strong. You can take those horses. After you went and really made these really hard run-ins on them at the fraternities, and you can go rope, slow them down. You still have the loudspeaker. You still have the crowd of people in there. You still have the horse still thinks that they're trying to keep them in the platform to where they're still on your team. You know what I mean? You can slow them down, you can go school them, and it's not that big of a deal. They're not having to ask for everything they got. I think it's a great platform for that. And then on top of that, you can go show your horse, get some points, and then have a good chance to go win a lot of money at the World Show.
I think, you know, the way this country was designed was the free market. And I think competition, in my opinion, is what drives a lot of excellence. Exactly. And to me is when a certain corporation or an entity or whatever, there's no competition, they can kind of stay down them same tracks.
Right.
But then it seems like when something else comes and is kind of evolving and might be keeping up with where things are going, you know, then if that other platform doesn't make those changes, then it ends up being extinct.
It was either in or out. You're gonna have to make a decision. So, and
that's one of the things I wish would happen in rodeo, or I'm hoping it's starting to happen, where competition starts showing up. Because I love where the fraternities are at. Because I'm telling you, these are my most famous podcasts out of all the podcasts that I do. Is the fraternity guys. This is growing in such a great way. Like we say, these horses are having some future now once they age out to where it's endless and where they can go. But I think also too is the fact that now some of the people now that are getting into this, the trainers, and I think this is really, really good for the trainers, is because now you're getting a scorecard coming back to you on what you need to critique on your riding to where you can get better.
Well, yeah, and some people might take it as the truth hurts, and some people might take it and say, "Well, I got to get better," you know, and that's.
You better have that getting better attitude no matter what you're at.
You better, I'm telling you.
Whether, like you said earlier, whether you're going to be construction.
Like I said, I was having trouble with stuff. I was having some trouble with some of my heel horses weren't doing what I wanted to do. I called Kate. I said, "Hey, I want you to come over there," and I said, "I want you to be blatantly honest with me what I need to do," and he was, and it helped a lot.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, he's done such a good job. I'm so proud of him.
Oh, so am I. Trust me.
He's a gosh dang solid dude. We did a podcast the other day, and I learned so much just hanging out with him. I'm supposed to go rope with him next Thursday and let him kind of hammer on me a little bit, because I love how good he's gotten in the corner, how smooth them horses right there are framing across the pin and facing. I love how every horse looks the same.
Well, them guys need to remember, if Cade won the rodeo, he'd be right there amongst them. He ropes as good as anybody does.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I really think he's very passionate, and I think he enjoys this better. I think Tate is one of those kids that needs to move, and that's what's hard about rodeoing.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's so much downtime.
Yeah.
You know, I think this fits where he's moving.
Right.
You know, he's passionate about it. He's really good at it. He's a great helper, and he's also a great trainer. And so, yeah, he's doing a wonderful job. He's been fun to follow. He's definitely one of the guys I keep on my social media, where every time he goes and competes, like I've got a bunch of reels that I've screen recorded because I love watching those runs. I love how he watching his left hand, how he's setting up all that stuff up. And also, too, like I said, I'm not discrediting the fact that guy also has them where they're standing right between the reins, too, scoring great. They are great all the way around, and he's been fun to watch. So a lot of trainers have talked about, I get it every single time it seems like I make a Facebook post, is the guy's up and coming, which is awesome, because I think that's what the fraternities now have done, is it's created an avenue and an interest for a lot of people to get started. Man, you have trained some of the best horses. You've trained some of the best trainers. Cade Rice worked under you, and I love the fact of everybody that I talk to, you have such great relationships with them, whether they've worked under you and moved on to their own business, whether it's your customers. Everybody has talked so highly about you. And to me, you're a great person to ask, what is kind of your business model in the fact of when you get trainers under you, what do you expect from them? How you're treating your customers, and the fact that when you get done, there's so many people that respect you, and that's not common. That's a great business model.
Well, I think when they come, and I always tell most of the ones that stay that I really have a better, I would say, a close relationship with, is I tell them I'll be disappointed in you if you leave here and don't better yourself. When you leave here, it's going to look bad on me if you don't better yourself. And Clinton Johnson worked for me probably the first before Cade did for 5 years. I don't know if you know Clinton Johnson. Clinton Johnson's brother is Clay Johnson, which was NCHA fraternity champion and $1 million rider, great hand. Them boys were raised out in West Texas, and Clint roped great. He helped me for 2 of the world championships, the one I won back to back. Well, the 2 of the same year. He was up to, he'd worked for me, and he'd left, and he went to work for Belo Wiley went out on his own, went to work for Belo, and he flew up there and he helped me, and we won, which was great. It was fantastic. Clint's one of my kids. And, but Clint, he left, he was there 5 years with me, and that guy could work half as hard and get more done. He was so super talented at roping. And, he's in the gas and oil, which I'm proud of him. He's done great for himself, got a great family, and it was no different than Cade, same kind of deal. And we had Garrett Summer. Garrett did great. He was 4 years with us, and he left us, and he said he wanted to be better, and so he went to work for Tate. And hell, if he was going to go somewhere, he couldn't have picked a better place. And of course, you're always disappointed to lose him, but you're always proud of him to go. Mm-hmm. So,
I like one thing Cade said. He said that if you got your ass chewed, that was basically, it came from a place of love, as a respect. If he didn't say shit to you,
yeah, pretty well. If I didn't say much to you, I didn't really care if you got it or not.
Yeah. And that's an old school way. And I love that because, I find myself looking back at things and I'm like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
And so it takes a kid that has a little bit of that rough skin and to have a little bit of that toughness to him, to where if you're not able to take a little bit of an ass chewing, and what he would call, he said, you can call it an ass chewing, but it's the constructive criticism that you need to hear to get better. And if you can't take that, you're truly in the wrong business.
Yeah. And those guys have all been successful afterwards, and it's part of it. And I mean, but they also know you have to get up every morning and go to work, and you got to work all day, and you got to get your job done. And some days are easy, and some days are hard. Mm-hmm. Some days you got a broken water line. I mean, it's just our job is 24/7. I mean, and I've got a great young trainer helping us now, Tyler Mannion. He's doing a great job for us. Been there about 1.5 years, going on 2 years. Very proud of Tyler. He's like making my job a lot easier. He's getting them horse to a spot where I can go on with them, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to do for him like we did for Cade, and have it to where he can show some of these horses, and these customers believe in them, and they see how much work they're putting into it. And that's the whole deal. I think somebody had a question about, how does a person get started in this? Well, the first thing is you got to work at it. And the second thing is you're not always going to be sent the best horses in the world to begin with. So you got to work. I want to say you got to work with what you got. You can't make if you can make a bad horse good, you did a great job. If you can make an average horse well above average, you did a good job. If you can make a good horse great, you've done a good job. That's how I look at the horses and what you're going to get. So what I would tell somebody young, as I would say, the biggest way to promote yourself is to go get yourself a nice horse and train it, and go show that horse yourself. That's what we did. When I was going through this stuff and I didn't have a great horse, we always had a horse of our own that was good. And I always kept one just to the sheer fact, if we didn't have a crop of really nice horses one year, I needed to have something to keep me look like I could still win, so we could still stay in business. And I've always kept a pretty nice horse. I don't want to say that in a bad way, but most all the time we've got a nice horse at some point in time. My wife's always got one of them. She keeps whichever one she wants. But
would you say that for a young trainer that's trying to get into the industry that doesn't have the knowledge, maybe even have the resources, it seems like going down a mentorship would be.
It would be easier than the path that I took.
Yeah.
I was a little late starting. I was 26 years old. Before I came here, I was just a cowboy before that. I knew nothing about this, period. I was brought out here by Don Dodge, which was, I don't know if you knew who Don Dodge was. He was one of the greatest horsemen ever. And he took me to Sam and Matlock Rose's house. I didn't even know where I was going. I didn't even know who these people were. And I was going to the best there was in the business through the years. And I was very fortunate that was who brought me over here and helped me get, Don sent me to a spot. I went to work for Lindy Birch. Great. Lindy had some of the greatest horses ever in the NCHA. From there to Chris Benedict. Chris had a good program, and it wasn't really working for me. So when I left and I went to Kobe's, that was a great move for me. I got to go to some quality. So talking about rope working for somebody, those are the three people that I really got to work for that were, and step by step, all worked itself out. When to Lindy's, I didn't know anything what was going on. Trust me, I had no idea. But I would work, and then when I went to the next place, I would learn more. When I went to Kobe's, at that point, I really could absorb what was going on. And so there, you're talking 3 or 4 years right there of that. And at that point in time, I wasn't roping. I was training a few horses, and Tanner Bryson and Donnie Bryson would come and Tanner bought horses from me for years. And they'd come out and stay and buy horses and go back home. Actually, I think the first time I met you was maybe at Tanner's place years ago. I'm almost positive. That's the first time I met you.
Was it the Steers and Beers?
The Steers and Beers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tanner
and that
Donnie,
place can be real easy to forget people.
Well, let me go ahead and tell you, if you don't want to have fun, you don't want to be around Tanner and Donnie Bryson, because they were fun people.
It was a lot of fun.
Yes,
that's one of the best ropings ever.
And they were so great for my business through the years too, because we sold them some good horses. They made some money on the horse. Everybody made money, and it helped me get a better name.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. They went through them. And Nick Sarche sold a couple of really nice horses for us too that went through some of his fans. And actually, one of those horses was a little bay gelding. He was by Catton. And he ended up with the minors, and he went from the minors to Corey Petska. And then I saw him I think the last of his career was with Jim Ross. That horse made it. He was about the same age as Dugout. Been kind of same era, but he lasted a long time through the years in there. But horse that nobody'd ever really probably know. But
it seems like with the young kids, in my opinion, going under the mentorship program would be in the fact of whatever you get paid is not almost what you're looking at. It's what you're about to make going 5 to 7 years as you learn the process.
Right.
If you can stay alive, if this is what you want to do, because sometimes the pay is going to keep you alive, but that's about it.
Right.
And so you're investing in yourself because it's a marathon, right?
Right.
And so learning the horse, learning the timing of the horse, how to train the horse, what you're expected to learn, how to make this horse look like in competition, what they're getting judged on, how to critique it when they're going over too much of this, not enough of that. And to me, to have that knowledge and as opposed to try to figure it out yourself,
right,
is the amount of horses you're going to save, the amount of time that you're going to save, the amount of stress that you're going to save, to me seems like such a good route. But as you being experienced and being on the knowledge side of it, and you're a trainer, but also in a way kind of a teacher, because you're getting these kids underneath of you. What characteristics are you looking for on these kids? Because I think they need to know, what kind of kid's going to make it.
Yeah.
So what characteristics do these kids need to learn to master?
Well, to begin with, they got to have some work ethic. You can't show up to work late. I got to say, through all the years, most of the time, Cade worked for me. And when Clint was there, I was there every morning, and it was kind of who's going to be at the barn first. Now, I've got a little older, and with the way my hand is, I don't want to saddle horses anymore. It pretty well takes away from part of my day. So I'm not out there first thing. And then, boys, if somebody's going to give you a chance to go move forward, then you need to be the boss when the boss isn't out there. So you're going to be in charge. You need to make sure, not the small things. Is that horse losing a little bit of weight? Does he need some more feed? Is the water's been cleaned? Of this, that, whatever. Just pick up. That's part of the management of of all of it. And that's part of the roping, and the horsemanship is a big part of it. But all the rest of that, it plays into it too.
Mm.
And then you got to try to make everybody happy, which you're not always going to. But you just do your best, and hopefully it'll work itself out. I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes it's disappointing at times, but it is part of the business.
Because it seems like some of the young kids that I've seen I've seen the kids that can rope. I've seen the kids that just have a natural instinct. They're good-looking, confident kids, and they have this God-given talent, and they're smart. That's the hardest things to have. Those are God-given talents.
Right.
Now, the things that are free, showing up on time, having that work ethic, having a good attitude, and you don't have to have sometimes as much as the stuff that was God-given if you're willing.
Yeah.
It seems like we're looking for willing horses that may not have that God-given talent either, but when they do and they're willing, it's amazing how far they can go. Just like Trevor, you look at Trevor. Trevor's got the trifecta. He's got all of it. He's worked hard. He was confident, and he was talented, and one of the greatest of all time. And there's so many other ones that maybe don't have the talent, but worked their ass off and became talented. And then a lot of the guys that I've seen that have the God-given talent, they have the confidence, they have the things that you can't teach, and they had none of the other stuff, and they just fell to the wayside.
Yeah,
and life was hard for them.
Yep, that's it, and it's tough because trust me, I never was that top caliber open roper. I fought my way down through there, and I was never like as good as a lot of people. I just had to outwork them, and that's just and then if you'll work and you'll put your nose to it and open your eyes. I spent numerous days at Robbie Schroeder's. I wasn't getting paid. I had some horses over there. I did whatever I could learn right there. That's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Gary Wells. Gary Wells, great trainer. You just got to get out there and go do it. And then if you get a job and you're fortunate enough to work for somebody that'll put the time in with you, and even to this day, I might not say anything to my help about what they're doing for a week. And then I might walk out there one day and just throw all this stuff at them. And they're like, whoa. And at times I should probably be a little bit, I don't want them looking over their shoulder at me, whether am I doing it right or wrong? I'm going to walk away. You figure it out a little bit, and then I'm going to come in here and say, hey, you probably need to slow down a little bit. You probably need to get that horse's confidence and maybe be a little bit easier on him. And maybe that bridle looks like his bars might be a little bit sore. You might want to change bridles. You might want to put a solid mouthpiece on there and or this, that, whatever, just some stuff. But I'm not going to just say every day, just tell them they have to absorb what's going on around them. And right now there's a lot of really good trainers and a lot of great horses, probably as many as I've ever seen. Right. And quality of horses and trainers is there, and a lot of young guys coming up.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of avenues if they want to do it, but the lazy way won't work because none of them guys got there by being lazy.
Well, I think the customers also see right through that.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to have successful customers. Success, it attracts success. And so, it seems like those successful people, they have employees.
Yeah.
They already know a lot of the same stuff that you're talking about. And so when they're looking to invest in their horses,
right,
they kind of know those characteristics, and they know somebody who's going to be honest, somebody who's going to have integrity behind their work. And like I say, a lot of those customers that are the ones you want, they also know that as well. And I think that's important. I think for them young kids to understand is, if you're wanting to be kind of lazy and not doing a good job, you're probably not going to get real good customers.
Right.
And so that's the stuff that I really think that you've done such a great job of. Everybody I talk to that's your customers that have worked under you, the respect that you have, and it's just breeds success, and it's pretty cool to see. Another thing was too, when I talked to Joseph, such of the impact that you had, and where some of the stuff that just how you explained, not always coming down on those kids. He said that you had made such a positive impact in him when he first got started. He said you and Brad Lund. He said you guys were very positive. He rode under Bobby Lewis. And so he knew a lot of the stuff. He knew the training, but it's one thing too when you go to compete against the guys. He was underneath you. He was a young kid coming up. And he said you and Brad Lund made such a good impact on him because you're so positive. You had very good, positive, constructive criticism, and you and Brad both. And he said that really made a lot of an impact just being able to as a young kid, sometimes getting your bubble bursted can be hard, but you got to develop thick skin.
Well,
but there's also different ways too where you can convey that message.
Yeah, Joseph's done a great job. I mean, he came up through this deal and going from doing great at the quarter horse stuff and then moving on and rodeoing and then being able to win some of the biggest things out there and then fall back into fraternity stuff. And, he's going to be reckoned with every week when they go somewhere. There's no doubt about it. Joseph, he told me one time we were at the World Show and I was trying to remember what he was riding, the sorrel gelding that came from Bobby. What was his name? Anyways, I'm thinking. Anyways, he told me I won Heelan that year, and he won reserve. And he says, "I'm going to come get you next year. I'm going to come get you next year." And I was like, "Hey, I'm happy. I know you're coming. Trust me, I can see it." But I was like, "Yeah, well, you're not. What are you going to say?" I was like, "Yeah, you're not quite there yet." But the next year, he come back and he won it on street, is what it was on Main Street.
Main Street Boone. Mm-hmm.
And he come back and he won it the next year, and I was like, "There you go." And I was proud of him. I was happy for him. But it was fun. Hell, it was fun that he thought that we made an impact for him. I'm glad to hear that. So,
well, you've done it for a lot of people and a lot of ropers, and the real exciting stuff that the avenue I want to go down next is the cowboy stuff. I really love the cowboy culture. I'm not talking about. I always thought of a cowboy as like that guy that you didn't hear of much. That when he spoke,
right,
he spoke volumes. He didn't brag. He was great with horses. He tended to stuff like, your John Wayne type of stuff. And I always think there's a difference, in my opinion, a lot of times between arena competitive cowboys and then cowboys. The guys that truly put food on the table and do a lot of God's work for us in a perspective of. But that's kind of how you got your start out there in Arizona.
Yeah,
being a cowboy.
I was born in Prescott, and my folks worked on the Hozoni Ranch. If you know where that is, that'd be south of Prescott. And it was about 30, 40 miles of dirt road off of very Highway 89, which was at that point in time just from Prescott to Wickenburg. And it was about 40 miles out there. It was about 10 miles past the middle of nowhere is where it was. We went to town once a month. And then we moved from there to a ranch that went from Peoples Valley all the way to Wickenburg. And I was raised on the Coughlin Ranch, more or less. And I was raised, Tom Johnson worked for my dad most of them years, which is Tom Bill. If you know Tom Bill Johnson, that's Tom Bill's dad. So Tom Bill and I have been friends since we were little kids.
Great guy.
His dad worked for my dad for years. And as we went through the years, we went to Kingman anyways, but as our cowboy and stuff, when I was so I worked for Tom after the fact. So I think the year I was I want to say I was 19, and we went to the San Carlos Indian Reservation. Tom had a contract to gather the cattle up there on the San Carlos Reservation, and that land, I believe, from the story, what I got was that was the land that the government had taken away from the ranchers some years before, and it was this was late 80s, so it was like in the 50s they took these ranches and they dispersed them into the Apache Reservation. And so from what I got, they gave them I want to say 90, 120 days to get all their stuff and get off. So they gathered as many of their cattle and their belongings and they left. So we come in, 30 years. And then I think the Indian reservation, the Indians tried to gather the deal with helicopter, gather some cattle, and they crashed the helicopter, killed a couple people. So Tom got the contract, and it was right there at Winkleman. And we went in and, I was there 2 months. They wouldn't let me leave because they knew I wouldn't come back. No running water, no electricity. We lived in a house that had been abandoned for 30-some years. We slept on the porch in a bedroll. We had one little piece of the house kind of closed off for a kitchen. It was. I thought at that time it was they were just torturing me, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned more at that one place probably than anywhere. It was like stepping back in time, like you said. It was like because the cattle were. We caught one branded cow. And they roped and let out 400 head of cattle off that place. And they caught one branded cow. The cattle didn't even really know what you were. I mean, you might run over a ridge and you'd be going to catch a cow and you'd run through a band of Mustangs. I mean, you might see the biggest mule you ever seen in your life. We seen the new world records coos deer killed by a lion. We found it underneath the tree where we tied the bull down right there. jerked our saddle off, and there's a deer laying underneath this line I killed. I mean, it was a unbelievable experience, I have to say. I mean, I can tell you numerous things that happened at that place, but it was like the wild cattle and roping them. We rope cattle and tie them up one day and come back and lead them in the next day. And the cattle, there might be some big bad bulls. We might leave them 2 or 3 days, let them soften up a little bit and lead them in so you could maybe not get mucked out and get each horse upside down or whatever. But it was a great experience, and even nature taking care of itself. There was no fence line in there, but the Bramer crossbred cattle were south and all the Hereford type cattle were in the north. I wish I could absorb it at this age and imagine having a camera. I mean, we had some pictures, but imagine having your phone like now. It would be unbelievable to go back in there. But speaking of cowboys and cowboying in Arizona, like Trevor Brazil is the king of the cowboys in the rodeo. Well, there was a man named Dave Erickson that was the king of the cowboys, and he's the one that taught every person. I wouldn't say every person. He taught most everybody I worked for Dave. And there was one way to do it, and that was the way Dave did it. Dave taught everybody how to rope and lead and tie them to a tree and get your most out of your horses. And Dave was great. I never worked for him. He was a tough man. And Travis's son, he's a great hand. I don't know if you've met Travis Erickson, but if you haven't, you need to meet Travis. He's an awesome guy. And
I went to college with him.
Yep, and Travis.
I went to college out there.
But his dad was kind of the one that taught everybody I worked for how to do this. And there was just one way to do it, and that was that way. And there's a line, there's your stepping order. I mean, here's the boss, and it's right down the list. I mean, we'd come in at night. We come in at night. I cooked dinner at night because they wanted to sit out there and have a cocktail and grain the horses. In the mornings, I was the one that had to go out there and feed and do all that stuff in the mornings because they wanted to sit there and drink coffee. They'd be happy to cook breakfast. I mean, that was just and it's no different than all this stuff. It's just respect on how you're supposed to do their stuff. And they got me killed a few times. I'm not going to lie about that. We had a big bull tied to saguaro cactus. There was even a book about this story, and we'd caught that bull, and this is a big Hereford bull. He probably weighed, 1,600 or something. He was a big bull.
What was the book called?
Ed Asher's wrote the book, and it was like, I got it at home. I can't remember, but it was the story of this is in there. And so they catch this big bull, and they tie him to a saguaro cactus right there. And so usually we tie a bull up like that. We'll leave them 2 or 3 days because they're tough. Let them draw up and let their head get a little sore and come back. And for some reason that day, they're like, maybe we're shipping cattle out that day, had everything in this Krell's going to time trailer. Anyways, they said, well, get that track. And they said, you're going to leave that bull? I said, well, yeah, I'll leave that bull. I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm not scared to leave that bull. Blah, blah, blah. So we leave the tree, we have them tie that cactus, and they go to untie him, and it gets quite a bit of slack, and I kind of had to ride into him with a lot of slack, which is usually not good, but I was just trying to get him to my horse's shoulder to where I could get hold. Well, I kind of got him gathered up there, and my horse was kind of weak in and on me, and so I reached down and I had his head real almost to my knee. I mean, we're talking maybe a foot of slack from my saddle horn to this bull's head. And I thought, man, if I can just get his head up a little bit more, I got him. And I reached down and still had a dally on there, and I pulled that rope up to get a little tighter. And about that time, that bull jerks his head down and jerks my horse down right on top of him. So the bull's underneath my horse. Bull jerked my horse down. I'm there, and I'm between my horse's legs. And Tom Bill's dad had them throwaway cameras, and he was taking pictures. And when that bull jerked my horse down, I just, I had these 20-pound chaps on, and so I went to running, just trying to get away. And I looked back, and that bull was just hooking the hell out of this horse down. He's hooked. I mean, he's got him down, hooking him. And I'm running. About the time I see that, Tom's hollering, "Don't run at me! Don't run at me!" And about that time, here comes that bull, and he sees me, and he's coming to me. And I remember looking back, and there was a guy working with us, and he was an unbelievable hand. His name was Tim Lang. And Tim could go get more out of a horse all day. He was a great hand. Anyways, this bull's just about to not get me down, and Tim runs into me and he hits me and grabs that lead rope the lead rope on that bull and gathers him up, and he knocks me down right there, and that bull's hooking that horse, and Tim he's just laughing. He's got him gathered up and goes leading him out, and he's like, "Hey, do you want him back?" And I'm like, "Hell no, I don't want him back. I don't want no more part of it." But it was a great story. That was quite a learning deal. We all went and we had that story, and then I had I had a horse there that came from a man. I don't know if you'd remember him years ago. His name was Wayne Lee. He lived in Nevada. He rodeoed, roped, he headed real good. He won everything there was to win the pot of gold ropings years ago and all that. So Wayne sent this horse with us, made to go ride up there. And he wasn't worth the shit, to be honest, flat out, terrible. So we get
Which is probably some of the times the best horses we have out there.
So because they don't kill him, with a rock, it's tough. It is what it is. And that's the mindset more or less they had. And so we get up there and we were down there kind of in the Devil's Herd. That was the cattle down there in the Choyas and all that thicket down there. And we jump a bunch of cows right there, and I catch this big old crossbred cow on this horse. And Tom's like, he said, you don't tie off on that horse because I don't want, blah, 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 I don't want you to get killed and this and that. So I said, all right. Because he'd get mad and just fall over. So I catch this cow. Well, there was 4 of us right there, and we blew them cattle up. And I thought there was somebody right there with me when I caught the cow. There wasn't. And it was a pretty big old cow. And I go to choking her, and she goes to choke down, and I feel this horse. He's like, I could feel him. He's about to got mad. So those days you take your rope strap was on your left side. It's not your right side like they do now. And that's the way you packed your rope so you could pick it up. Just went over the saddle horn at that point in time, right? So I have a couple dallies right there, and so if you can tie your rope off, you'll just go underneath your rope and then double half hitch on your saddle horn if you're going to tie it off. Well, that horse got mad, so I just run my rope underneath there and tied it off there, and I went to pull that strap over top the saddle horn. My horse fell over backwards. And about that time, that cow choked down. I was like, well, hell with him. He'll figure it out in a minute. So I go down there and get this cow, and her back is uphill. So I'm trying to roll her. I got a hind leg, and I'm trying to roll her up because you can roll them up on their back, and you can hold a big bull down. Well, her back's uphill, and I'm trying to roll her up there, and I can't get her rolled up. And about that time, that horse gets up, my rope comes off saddle horn, the horse checks out, and I got this cow by a hind leg up there on this Malapite Ridge by myself. And I'm hollering for some help, and there ain't nobody coming. So I help. About this time, I'm trying to reach up before I can get my rope off her. I still got her hind leg rolled up best I can. Well, this cow's getting her hair back. And I'm thinking, okay, that's just about what I mean, we're in a cholla thicket, which if anybody knows anything about cactus, you don't want to be in a cholla thicket. It's terrible. And that cow finally gets up and gets her air, and I go to run, and she chased me over all of that deal. I finally stepped off, and I stepped below her. She kind of fell, run downhill, and then she ran off down where them guys had a cow tied down with my rope. When they heard me hollering. Well, I miss them. They catch the cow, and they come to find me, and they find my horse. They miss me. Well, Tom, he thinks I'm dead. He said, I don't know what I'm going to tell your mother. Oh, my God, she's going to kill me whenever, blah, blah, blah. And that was a short morning. We went straight to the bar after that. We were close to Winkle.
Celebrated.
That was a celebrated life. And he's like, oh, don't do anything on that horse again like that. No, like, he ended up making he ended up surviving, but it was a good story. It was fun. My dad was a great cowboy. He, a quick story about him is he was actually leading the world in the team tying in 1959. And they put the neck rope on backwards at Prescott and got him around the neck, jerked him 35-foot score riding around an old horse, and just about killed him. They cost him. He ended up missing the NFR by $8 because he couldn't rodeo the rest of the year. But anyways, just a story about my dad. It was kind of it was a tough deal for him. He always,
describe team tying for a lot of people.
Team tying, okay, the header's tied off, the heeler's tied off, and the header ropes the steer, turns the steer, the heeler heels him, the header gets off his horse, the heeler jerks the steer down, and the header goes down there and ties a square knot between the dew claws and the hocks on the steer. And one leg or 2 legs, it doesn't matter. But I've been fortunate enough I was raised with my dad doing that, and fortunate enough to win the Wendy Ryan one year and with Rhodey Wilson, and then I was fortunate enough to win the team tying at the Fisher Grip with Blake Helms, which was fun because we got up there and Brady Miner's like, we're buying ourselves a cow cut. He goes, you ain't going to win nothing this thing. I said, no, I'm going to win this thing tomorrow. We're drinking beer right there while they're playing. And he's like, no, I'm telling you. And we sold, I think Trevor was roping with Jade that year or something. And so them guys brought all kinds. We sold for nothing. Cade was with us. Cade's like, I can't remember what we brought, but it was like nothing. We were the cheapest team that sold in this thing. And so we bought it, and Kay's like, I'm buying part of the Calcutta with you guys. And we're like, yeah. So Blake and I won first round, won the second round, won the average. But it was, I come back, I run the first one, and Brady's like, you weren't bullshitting. Because I mean, I stepped off and I got to him, and I was like, snapped the tie on him pretty quick. And he's like, you weren't lying to me. I said, no, I told you I was going to win this today.
I've done this before.
But it was fun.
What Cade? I enjoyed the story that Cade talked about you're wanting to name a horse this about the story about the rodeo in the backyard.
Yeah, and Bill and Tom will probably get it. And Steve Hampton, another great friend of ours, cowboy. But anyways, Tom, they were at Bumblebee down there, and they had some big yearlings there kind of gathering what was left, and there was going towards Black Cane City. There were just kind of some little old trailer houses and kind of some sketchy neighborhoods back over there in the I think this is maybe mid '80s, and Tom he goes to catch one of these yearlings, and this yearling runs right through these people's right kind of their backyard, and he catches this yearling in their yard and just wipes their fence out. I mean, and he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to come out with a gun or whatever. And he said about that time, this lady steps out of the door, and she's got a cigarette in one hand, she's got a glass in the other, and she says, "Yeehaw, rodeo in the backyard."
That's awesome.
No, Tom Johnson, he was a big time. We had a lot of fun working together.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to Joseph about some of this stuff, and he was telling me some of the greatest stories that you would tell at some of these fraternities and shows and stuff. And he said, now I enjoyed kind of his perspective of it. He said, these are, when you're talking about chasing wild cows, it's a lot different than catching spoiled cows. He said, like, cows get around down here, a lot of the, fences are pretty close.
Right.
And so, he considered, spoiled cows learn how to get away. But he said back then, where you were at, it was such wide open country that these are wild cows that may have never seen.
There'd be lots of days if you're gathering cattle, you might not see nothing. You might see tracks, and you'll trail around, and hell, them guys like Tom and them, they could see a lion track on a rock. I mean, people that have done it for so long, it's unbelievable that, like, even Steve Hampton, those two were like brothers that just almost want to unbelievable that the respect I have for them, for what they did for me to get to where I was at.
That is crazy when you think about, like, because we all watch the movies, the old westerns, with the trackers and things like that, but then to be able to watch it in real life,
hey, those guys used to go. They could just be in a trot and whoa, 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 see that? And I'm like, what? What are you looking at? That lion track? I'm like, where? They're like, oh, it's right there. And I'm like, I don't see it. I mean, and they were sure as shit. It was about right every time.
That's fascinating. And you talked earlier, too, when we were talking about some of these stories as well. I liked how you talked about that was kind of what got your start, was being a cowboy.
Right.
And so you almost kind of knew the limits of a horse because of some of these things. Like I've talked to some of my guys, they say in the Navy SEALs, they say that most people only give 60% of their full potential because that's kind of when your brain is designed to keep you alive. So you're kind of comfortable at that spot. And they say that when you become a SEAL, you learn how to find that other 40%. Right. And so there's limits, that you have, and you're almost in this area, you're kind of testing the limits on what they can and can't do.
And I think training, like for the Navy SEALs, I mean, I'm just going to try to put these two in perspective. Like, so if you're on a ranch and your horses get turned out for the summer and you go to your fall works or spring works, however you want to do it, in the winter and come back to your spring, those horses have been turned out. They're probably had their shoes jerked off. They're probably going to stick some shoes on them. You come back, and they usually would work the easier country to begin with to let them horses start getting in shape. I'm sure the same with the training with them. Get them in shape and get them hard to where they could do a full. Because when you leave there in Arizona, it's not like ride a half a day and then change horses. It's like you're riding that horse all day, and you better pack a shoe with you, and you better have a pair of pliers, and you better have a pocket full of horseshoe nails, and be able to tack a shoe on a horse with something like that to get home so you don't plumb cripple one. Numerous times that's happened. I mean, everybody packs a shoe and a pair of pliers and nails and wood matches in case you got to build a fire or whatever. I mean, wood matches is always something that I remember we carried. But getting those horses in shape was a big deal because you figure when you really go to work and it's hard, you take that horse and you ride you're a hard full day. And when you come home, those horses, the first night, they're not going to eat. Next morning, they might nibble on their grain. They don't eat much. Lay down. Third day, they kind of get back on their feet, go to eat, and then they're getting back. And usually you ride them horses every 3 or 4 days. So by the 4th day, they're ready to go again. And heck, you might ride half a day. The horses hardly break a sweat when you get them really in shape. You can see what a horse can really do. I've seen what a horse can, the punishment they can take in a rough, hard day of cowboying in bad, tough country and take care of themselves and see how tough they are. And then also see how fragile a horse can be. I mean, horse colic or, just stuff that you have to watch if they get off their feet and they get sick and I mean and living out in that country, it seemed like I don't remember it ever being like that. And now there's always a worry in your barn, and those horses I think they were just so tough, but they had a limit. The horse would tell you when they had, they could only do so much. And I mean, I pushed the limit on that. And then there's some days that you've got to give it to one, and they've got to have a hard day of roping. And hopefully you come back that next day and it's an easier day, and you work from there. It's the same deal, but like you said, there's a limit. You got to be careful. But like you said, that bottom 40%, getting to that is it's there, but it's spooky at times.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, because you think of like Derek Begay. He's made such a great name for himself because I've heard stories of guys going and roping with him, and they're like, it was fun and it was awesome, it was amazing, but you also had to take your life in your own hands.
Yeah,
some of the things that you would get into and the canyons and
yeah, and even working with everybody. Remember, you're somebody else's and working in that high risk of a environment where you're running across really rough country. If you make a mistake and you got somebody with you right there, it affects them. I mean, everybody's life's kind of on the line to help each other. You gotta. I mean, if you're in the wrong spot, you mess the whole day up. I mean, it's a team, and I think they taught even what we do for our business. It is a team. It takes all of us to do this. I mean, one person can't do it all. Everybody's got to have a spot, and everybody's got to pitch in and see something wrong and take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
Take the reins and do it. It's a teamwork in this whole thing too.
So I've also heard of you being also a legendary Indian leg wrestler. And so some of the stories that I've heard, maybe with MJ and some other competitions you've had in the past. Was that something you learned out there, Cowboy?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, growing up, I had two older brothers, and that was something that we did. So my brother Judd was really good at it. But yeah, Michael Jones brought Joey Bell over to the house one day, and I can't remember what. Joey was there. I don't remember the whole reason of all of it, but we were all there, and we were bullshitting there and drinking some beer, and Bubba Matlock was there, and Clint Johnson, and Matt Budge, because Matt sent the deal. I never even thought about it. So we get talking something about leg wrestling, and Joey Bell. If you ever seen Joey Bell, his legs are like tree trunks. This guy's huge.
Yeah.
And anyways, I said, I can beat him, and they're like, no, you can't beat him. I said, no, I can beat him. I said, bet him 100, Matt. I said, I can beat him. And Matt's like, oh, here's $10. I said, $10? That's a friendship bet. Come on, bet him 100. I'm going to win. He's like, no, I'm going to bet $10. So we laid down there and we kind of missed it. Anyways, I rolled Joey over right there. And he got up and he was like, because I have it on video somewhere. And he was like, you could tell he was kind of a little frustrated about it. And I was like jumping up and down like, yeah, I beat you right there. And he's like, we're doing it again. I said, never. I'm never doing it again with you.
This one.
I beat you one time.
Taking this win.
But speaking of MJ, he was a lot of fun at times. There's no doubt about that. But that was fun that time. And it was pretty fun watching him ride replay at Houston too. That was another pretty fun deal to be able to see your horse go in those kind of lights. So
yeah, that's funny. What so you've done a really good job with your ropings. I remember, I think it was 2020, and it was kind of the perfect storm where you and Shane Boston decided to have a roping. I don't know if it got postponed or if you just had it scheduled where it was kind of right there at the perfect storm. I know.
Yeah, Shane just called me and he's like, hey, let's have an open roping. I'm like, okay, well, where are you going to do it? And he goes, no, I'm going to do it at your house. Just have it right there.
Well, you've had some before in the past.
I always had, for probably 16 years, I would have one. I'd have a roping once a year in August. Like August was usually a slow month. We would have that roping to kind of try to supplement our income for that month. So, and it was a big time. And it might be all night and who knows what would happen around there, but it was usually a good time. And our opens were pretty good. So so Shane's like, hey, let's have this roping.
Didn't I feel like in 2019 you still had one, but maybe you had it in the spring? In 19 at your house? Because it was a good rope.
Yeah, we had it in the spring. That was the first one we had. That's the first big open roping we had was at our house.
It was a pick 2 and you drawed your third run.
Yep.
If I remember
right. It was you could enter one, draw one, then you could pick your second partner. So same way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You had to be entered in the roping to draw one, and then you could rope with your second partner.
Yep.
So I can't remember how many teams we had. We had I want to say 60 or 80. It was a really good roping. And I think Shane added 25,000 or something to the roping that day. And just out of it, just being a good guy. I mean, just trying to, and Coleman was there. It was a really good.
It was a
So
great jackpot.
Ricky Parnell had went and bought a bunch of steers, and they weren't M-brands, but they looked like M-brands.
They were really good.
And we broke them in, and that roping that day I thought was great. The roping was so tough. And remember the short round? There was no misses in the short round. Like it was.
Those steers were good.
It was the steers.
Let you rope.
Yeah, it was a great roping.
Yeah.
I think Cody Snow won the roping, right?
I can't remember. I remember I placed in it, and I just remember it paid good, and it was fun because you're roping good steers, and
it was like one of the last big outside ropings we've had.
Yep.
And then
because that is hard these days in Texas, because you can't have a big roping and have it outside unless you have a backup plan with an indoor, because you can't rely on the weather in Texas. And it was one of the few times, like you said, where we got to get to rope outside, and it was so much fun.
So the next year we were going to have a roping. We were going to have a roping in February or March or something, and then COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So we postponed it, and we had to end up having it over there at that arena at Stephenville.
Wildwood.
And anyways.
And was it April? Because I can't even remember when we started kind of coming back.
Tell you what, it had to be April or May.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of in the end of COVID, and then I had 12 the next day, and it was huge.
It was the perfect storm. It was like literally, it was the first thing that came back.
Yeah. And so
it was, and you had numbered ropings with added money.
Number 12 was, and it was huge.
That was like hardly ever
400 teams or something crazy.
Hardly ever was there numbered roping with added money. That was kind of an open thing.
Right.
And you guys had added money in the open and the numbered ropings, and the floodgates of the ropers was unbelievable.
Yeah. The bad part was the day before, I had to steer get out on the highway, and
I remember you got injured.
Yeah, I had to steer get out on the highway, and it was kind of raining, and I make a long story short, he wasn't a real big steer, and I told the boys, just get a rope on him. We got a rope on him. Me and Garrett were holding him right there, and I sent somebody to go get a horse. About that time, I looked up, steer runs me over, tear my hamstring from my butt to my knee off. Step through the coils of the rope, steer dragging him down the highway, down the bar ditch. Garrett finally gets him stopped, drags me, runs me over, hooks me, drags me a little while. Finally get unhooked. Make a long story short, I missed. I tried to come to the roping the next day, but I couldn't. Had to go get my leg worked.
I remember when you were sitting in the lawn chair, just miserable.
Yeah, I tried to make it.
And I was thinking, gosh, dog, all the cowboying you did in Arizona, and you got hurt by a dang native steer on the road.
I got hurt. I got hurt here twice. I mean, I had a horse turn over and break my leg off catching a bull over here. I'm like, this flat country is a hell of a lot more dangerous than them rocks are.
That's wild. And so now, like, that roping went so good every year, everyone was looking forward to it. It was one of those things, like, say, when you do it right the first time, it was the perfect storm.
Right.
And now you guys have 2 of them a year, correct? But you have one coming up.
We have one coming up first weekend October. I think it's the 4th, 5th, and 6th, if I remember right. And
where's that located?
It'll be at the 377 Arena. T and them
here in Stephenville.
That arena's great.
Yep.
Mr. Gibbs, we appreciate him very much. T does a great job.
Those 2 arenas. I mean, it's so handy.
It's so good. I mean, so our 15 will come back with we'll bring some which I've been breaking steers in. I broke in about 200. We got about another 50 to break in, and then James Watson will produce the roping for us. James will bring some cattle for some of the lower number stuff. But I've got the steers broke in. Cade, Ryan Motes, thank you, Jordan, all them guys coming and helping us get this stuff done. Nikki Northcott. And so we'll have a number 15 with the regular barrier. We'll have a number 14 with the regular barrier. So all them cattle, by the time we get to the 13 with the World Series, should start. Which, as we all know, I wish we could have a regular barrier on everything. But at least the cattle should start, and it makes it, because it's pretty tough to take fresh cattle and then they don't start, and you have to go with that barrier. It's a tough deal. Mm-hmm. So, and then we have our open on Sunday, a pro-am, and it should be a really good roping. We're looking forward to it. And it has been in the past.
What are all the ropings that you add money to?
We're adding money to the open.
How much money are you adding the open?
Open's $15,000 this year. In the fall, in the winter, it's going to be 25, at least 25, and maybe a little bit more. In February, it's kind of our premier roping, I would say. And we have some 10,000 added ropings and some 5,000. Most of the ropings are 5,000 added, and then the number 12, I believe, might be 15,000, 10 or 15. I have to look at the flyer, and then we're giving some shotguns away and got bridles for that, and I think we got some hats from Resistol, and Teskey's is helping us with all that stuff too. So,
but anytime I feel like you have numbered ropings, and you have money added, the ropers are going to come.
Yeah, the ropers, I mean, we've been fortunate to get them. I mean, we might lose a few for the number 15 because of some of them guys are amateur rodeoing and the new year starts, and some of those guys that are roping and that roping will go try to go to the rodeos to get to where they can go to some of the winter rodeos and stuff.
And then your next roping that's coming up.
The next roping in February.
So that one's coming up in February.
It'll be the 31st, 1st and 2nd, I believe. And we'll have
February 31st,
no,
March.
January 31st.
Oh, January 31st.
February
and
1st
February
and 2nd.
1st and 2nd. Okay.
And it'll be the same format. We'll add more money in the open.
And then what's the location there?
It'll be at 377 too.
Awesome.
And then I think last year we gave some this year we gave some Rangers away, so we'll give some other prizes away at that roping in the spring.
So this one, the winter's real strong.
That's the winter's is a little bigger than the one in the fall.
And then go ahead.
And then come 2025, we're going to have our roping, and then 2 days before our roping, we're going to put on a fraternity for the solo select stallion incentive. So it's going to be we'll have a calf roping and a breakaway the first day. I believe they're going to add $15,000 to each of those two events, and they'll have to be 4 years old, and they'll either have to be by one of the stallions that they are standing in their stallion barn there, or you have to have a breeding to take the place of another 4-year-old, because a lot of these are freshman stallions. So like the Dark Side, the Notorious Big,
Notorious B.I.G.
B.I.G. and Pride and Joy and all those horses, they don't have any. They have no horses. I think Biggs has 1 2-year-old, some couple 2-year-olds, but the other ones I don't think they have anything but yearlings coming up. So they'll proxy those horses in by a breeding.
Okay.
And so I think at the moment, Ty told me that they're going to have like 350,000 added to this whole deal. And the way they're doing is they're taking a percentage off of their stallion, if I remember right, off of what their stallions on their breedings, each one. And that's where they're adding money coming through. So through the year, they'll keep it posted. When they start breeding, they'll start adding more money to it as they go, so you can see exactly how much money's going to be added at the end. And it'll have a intermediate in it also, the intermediate's going to have 15,000 added in it, and then they say the open should pay probably at least 50,000 in the head and then 50,0wn in the heeling.
Wow. Now, so it's kind of a select group.
Yes,
it's going to be
have to breeding
to the breeding.
Have to have a breeding to one of the stallions that they have in their barn, or one of the horses have to be by one of those horses.
And you said it's a 4-year-old and under?
It's just 4 years old. No, it's not 4 and under. It's just 4-year-olds.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that's it. Because those are young 4-year-olds, right?
Right.
They're just coming from
No,
the
it'll be
3-year-old.
fall. Yeah, it'll be fall. So.
Oh, so this is next year.
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking this. So it's not the one in February.
No, it'll be 2025 in October.
Roger that.
So those horses have been hauled.
Now I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
this is the one in 2025 in the fall.
Right.
In October.
Right.
Got it. So yeah, that'll be good then.
Yeah, it should be really good. I mean, like I said, they're wanting to another venue to add a lot of money. I mean, just like they did, a great deal the other day up there. Ren Richard and them guys did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Jay, Utah looked to me like it was unbelievable.
It was.
So
yeah, I looked like it too from where I was sitting. Yeah, absolutely. Now, who's going to put this fraternity on?
Myself, me and James Watson will help us do it, but Shane and I'll get the cattle, and I'll be probably doing most of the fraternity stuff. I'm not going to rope in it. I'll just
now. What about the judging?
The judging, we're going to have we're going to kind of use the same system that they do for the American Rope Horse fraternity deal, except we're going to use 3 judges.
Okay,
and then the time.
And then how many judges in the? Is it 2?
2. They use 2. Yeah,
in American Rope Horse.
Right.
Okay. So you're going to use 3.
We're going to use 3, and then the time will be 25% instead of a third.
So what do you think the purpose is, or what is it about the difference between when you use 2 judges to where you're going to use 3 judges?
I think that Ty and them really wanted to go with the 3-judge deal. They felt like it would it would even itself out a little bit better with 3 people compared to 2.
I really do like the sound of that, because it's amazing how many angles, in a way, you can kind of miss.
And if you judge, and I've judged too, and it's like what you see at where you're sitting compared to where somebody else is really, you can see a 2-point difference. You know, I mean, I get that too.
So I agree with that. I like the thought of that. So yeah, that I like that. That's gonna add another element to it. Like I said, I think all these guys kind of trying a few of these different things. To me, it's just going to strengthen where it's going to go, in my opinion. And so there's also, you have a horse, I think, coming up in the Solo Select.
Yes, we do.
Now, is that this weekend?
That is Labor Day. Yes. So I guess.
And so where is this sale located?
It's an online sale. Solo Select and it's an online horse sale.
And what horse do you have in there?
The mare's name is Metallic Hot Rose. She's a 3-year-old. She's by Metallic MVP, which won $300,000. Anyways, she's a really pretty nice mare. I got her going good. Mare's score's great. The videos are on there. They'll have all
on the Solo Select
on her site there. They'll have her videos. They'll have pictures of her. They have X-rays for her.
A lot number or anything?
Yeah, the lot number is 524.
524.
Yeah, but they'll have they're pretty up. Like when they have their sales, they do a great job. They got their X-rays. They stand behind their horses. They do a great job. And like I said, and they're with their fraternity stuff. They're really just trying to give back to the, to all the people that are breeding too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a good match.
Yeah, like us, we're fortunate enough to have colts by bigs, and Shane's got a couple that are one really nice looking 2-year-old, and then we've got out of our mare, and then we've got a dark side. There's a dark side, and we had one that died, and then we've got a couple Pride and Joys coming this next year. So I mean, it's fun to be able to watch these young stallions, and we've been watching the last little bit. Look, Time to Glow, all those horses are going to have colts coming up, and they're just 5 and 6 years old, so it's really exciting to watch because their horses are going to hit pretty quick, and it'll still be freshly on everybody's mind that they remember that horse showing.
Yeah,
because they've done their first horses that have really won over $100,000, and it's kind of a judge like the rope horse fraternity stuff. So
now, what is it that they call that? The ET? What is it? The your lifetime earnings? What do they call that?
Lifetime earnings?
Yeah, they have there's a 3
lifetime LTE,
yeah. And that's a lifetime
earnings.
Earnings.
Yeah.
And that is what's going to start, I think, in my opinion, start keeping some good tracks on what these horses are winning through fraternities. And golly, now what they're starting to win. You might be getting close to $1 million horses here before they age out.
I think a lot of the studs, the ones that I know of for sure that they're going to have there is Woody Be Tough, Dark Side, Notorious B.I.G., Pride and Joy, Time to Glow. They have a new horse, Metalliscat, just moved over there. And then another horse called the Animal that won quite a little bit of money in the cutting. And then Ty and Melanie's other horse, Metallic Cat Attack. And I don't know what else, but there's a good start for a person to go online and look and see what they have to choose from there. So,
and this is Melanie Smith that's running the
Melanie and Ty
Select,
Smith, yes.
Sale. Man, she's a gangster.
Yep, she's awesome.
That girl is a go-getter. I listened to her podcast, I think on Clinton Anderson, maybe his podcast, because I've heard so much about her and been really intrigued by her. Golly, this girl just makes it happen.
They're workers.
And a young age. It's a young girl.
Yep.
It's amazing how young she is and what she's done to the industry. Really forward thinking.
Yep. No, it's all, like I said, we're looking forward to all of it. Mm-hmm. Things moving on in the future. So
now you've got some studs also. That you guys have that maybe you and Shane Boston partner with, things like that?
No, actually, I don't have any studs. I just have a mare that, like our mare, we've flushed and bred back to up all those studs is the only thing that I have, but I don't have a stallion. No.
Awesome. Yeah. What, so man, you've done such a good job with your career. Like I said, my opinion, you've done such a great job in the fact of your horses speak for themselves, what you've been able to train them and what you've been able to do with them, the integrity you have. A lot of people, it's a hard business because it's a hard business to retire in. And so, TJ Jones asked a really good question. He said, how does a guy set himself up for retirement as a horse trainer? What should a young person look at doing to prepare himself for when the time comes and they aren't able to train anymore? Which is probably the $1 million question in that industry, isn't it?
We were fortunate enough, which is it's probably tougher now than it used to be the way things are, but we bought a place and we'd buy a horse and I'd train it. We'd sell it. We'd build a barn. We'd get another horse. We'd train it. We'd sell it. We'd build some runs. We'd one step at a time, invest your money back into your place. And through the years, we started with we had a house and kind of an arena and a loafing shed at that place where we're at. So our neighbors divorced. We bought the place next door. We built a barn. one horse at a time. We sold, Cheetah. We built a cover out there. That's what built my shed row outside. We sold another horse and invested in building a covered arena. We bought the other land behind us. And so when the day comes that I can't do this anymore, this is what our retirement is. We'll sell that, and hopefully there's enough there for us to make a living off of. But I think that everybody needs to. Your training is going to maybe pay your bills. You've got to buy one, train one, and sell one for you to invest your money to where you can hit a really good lick once in a while, and then that's how But make sure you go buy back. Get yourself another horse. I mean, that's what we've been fortunate enough to. The only horse we haven't sold is Replay. So if that goes to tell you as many as we've had go through the years, that's the only one that stayed there.
Archie Keeney told me when I was a young kid, he said there's a difference between making a living and making money. And I think you explained it really good. Yeah. Get your bills paid by a certain business, but then there's got to be something on the side where you're able to make that money. What makes money is when you're able to buy land, when you're able to add on to things. And I think where you're at too is, no telling now where you'll be able to invest as you keep doing that to further along, when it's time, you have something that's making money while you're sleeping.
And trust me, there's a lot of sleepless nights worrying about whether or not you're going to, are we going to have enough horses to do this? And, we've took very few vacations in our life. I mean, it's to visit our family, but besides that, luckily my wife's going to go to Africa. So.
Yeah. There's not as much, it seems like in a way, I think it's almost misunderstood that a lot of the trainers that you see at the horse shows and the fraternities and stuff like that, because they're starched up and it's a show, so you look clean and, they're all eating at the good places. But what you're not seeing is a cowboy shit that they do behind, during the week, and the sweat, the blood, the tears, it goes on. And so when they're able to get cleaned up and go to those shows, they're able to let the horse do what they want. But by golly, now we're going to finally get to go eat something good.
Yeah.
So it's not always what you see at the fraternities, because there's a lot of grinding that goes on during the week before you get there.
Yeah. And like for us right now, and I would assume a lot of these guys, we are on summer hours, which we start about 4 and we work till it gets too hot and go from there. And then so. Actually, for me, I'll be glad when fall starts, because then my phone rings the rest of the day and there's always a feed you got to buy, or there's something you got to go pick up, or you got to take a horse somewhere. So summer for me are long days, but I'm looking forward to fall, because then we're all on the same schedule. So it's a little easier for.
Well, you get more time out of your day.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's 110 like it was last week.
Right. Then the whole deal, a lot of times in summer, you got to remember, it's survival too. You got to be careful. I mean, them horses, you got to keep them hydrated. They can't stay tied out all day in the sun. I mean, you've got to use a little bit of common sense, and trust me, anything can happen. And we try to get our stuff done when the weather's as cool as possible, and try to get my cattle kicked out before it gets too hot. And then we try to ride our colts. And if we got to go inside and lope in there where it's or ride inside where it's covered, we do it. But otherwise, we try to work outside if we can. It's a little closer to the barn, a little faster. So,
yeah, because I figured you probably used that barn where you're able to water that arena. And do you have a fan in there?
We got a couple fans. Yep.
I figured that'd give you some longevity throughout the day. But
we like I said, we try to work outside as much as we can. And then like if we have a strong north wind, I work inside. I don't, because I'll be roping into the wind at our house, and it's
Roger that.
Them horses just seem to. Everybody has a bad day. It seems like.
I don't rope.
And we used to have rain. We used to have rainouts, but we don't have any rainouts anymore. With no excuses.
There's no days off now.
No, we used to get some rainouts, and I think those rainouts maybe help them horses sometimes let their bodies catch up a little bit too. So
let them kind of marinate.
Yep. There's sometimes I think that sometimes a day off might be a pretty good day spent for a horse.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate the conversation, man, and I really respect you. One of the things that Cade and I, when we talked about when he was on the podcast, I enjoyed it when I went to your guys' place and went and tried horses, because you told me everything about the horse to the T. I remember one time we tried that bay horse, and you're like, man, I think this one's got some stuff, might be a little green, but I think he's got just enough run, but he's got some things I like. And I got on him. He was exactly what you talked about. Had some fast feet, he had some cool look to him. We ended up buying that one. And then I remember looking at some other ones, and you're like, this one might be more of here, maybe a little bit slow-footed, but but you can try him anyway. And then sure enough, like I said, everything you said was true. And I love that, in the fact of, to have that trust, to be able to have someone that lets the horse speak for him. You're not going to lie. You're not going to tell us anything. The integrity that you had, and just your development of relationships you've had with everyone in the industry. And you're so well spoken about and so respected in the industry. And man, I just thank you for that, and thank you for your friendship, and thank you for coming on this podcast, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Charlie. You're doing a great deal for all the people in the horse business and the rodeo world to get this stuff out, and I appreciate you. I'm pretty honored you invited me.
Well, thank you. I think your story is something that so many people need to hear, with how well you train and the business that you run. I think it's hard for a lot of young kids to learn the business when you're not sure how to run the business, and you've done a great job. And so your story and who you are and everything, I think, is a great story that needs to be told. So appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Charlie.
Got it, buddy.
Bye.